Denver in Park, those were the ones she liked. She had record and he had a guitar down there. She taught herself playing the guitar. She started writing songs about her life and her feelings, her emotions, what was happening in her life. So, you know, she was young and she did this all the way until she graduated from high school, in the basement, writing music, pouring her heart out through the words in her songs. And at her high school graduation, she sang one of her songs, and her parents, she said, were there, and they both said, "Oh my God, how did that girl learn to even sing and play that guitar? Oh, we're just totally surprised." And Dad said, "You should do something with that." She said, "Can you imagine your kid from the time they're 10 years old until they're 18 in the basement, playing their guitar, writing music, singing, playing music, and as a parent having no idea that that was going on at all?" She said that was the flavor, the culture of her home. Her parents were completely caught up in their own dysfunction and drama. She took she took drama at Mount Royal, and she continued to write music. She said she just poured out all this music. She started singing in bars, and she met somebody who played alongside her and really encouraged her, an older guy. She said that was just very uplifting and really empowered her and encouraged her to do her thing. Booked all kinds of gigs for her. He met a man from A&M Records and talked him into listening to Jan's tape. In those days it was a tape. You could pop it in your car and play this tape. So she talked this guy into it. He was an executive with A&M. He listened to the music and said, "Don't like it. It's too gloomy. It's so depressing. I just can't relate to it, and it won't sell. It's a downer." But good things happen when bad things happen. And he was supposed to be getting married in a couple of days, and his fiancée broke up with him and said she wasn't marrying him, and he was heartbroken and devastated. Got in his car, the tape came on, he listened to Jan's music. It was relatable now. He said, "I get it, I got it. It spoke to me. It was exactly how I was feeling. It was wonderful. It won't sell, but I'm going to produce it." So it became a hit, and the rest is history. She had like 19 top hits. She had 14 albums produced. She's written a couple of books. She's toured across Canada and sung with the symphonies across Canada. I heard her speak, not really sing. I heard her speak because she traveled with the Vagina Monologue that went across Canada, a presentation that was in support of women who had experienced sexual abuse and girls. And so it funded millions of dollars, and she was fantastic in it. And I'm a very conservative girl. I grew up on a farm. I went to a community church. I just really had a very in-the-box childhood. And so even though the fact that she used the V word was shocking to me, and so it was a good experience for me. It was a very good experience, and I thought maybe it was going to be a bad experience, or that maybe it was a bad thing, but no, it was a good thing about a bad thing. So I went home thinking, where in my life have good things happened when bad things happened? I really had to get my head around that, because being this conservative young Christian girl, I was brought up in a home where we did not get emotional. My dad was raised by a single mother. His dad died when he was 7. My mom and dad's first baby died when it was born, just after it was born. My dad's brother, who lived really close to us, we were very close. He had 5 young boys. His brother died when my dad was about 35 or 36 years old. My dad did not express emotion. He was shut down. He was a good person. He was nice to be with. But now as an adult looking back, I realized those bad things happened to this good person who was a good father, but who really taught me through his example not to feel my own emotions. And so here was Jan on the stage, able to actually talk about all these things in her life. The fact that she had this kind of a family, the fact that she really struggled herself. She struggled herself with alcohol and overcame that. She stepped out in a world where few women were stepping out back then. I'm older than her, so it was even more conservative when I was at that stage. Women pretty much didn't even go drinking. and if you wanted to have sex, you got married. And if you were pregnant, you got married. And you didn't talk about it. And my mom, when she was pregnant, she had 5 or 6 pregnancies. She wore her winter coat in the summer to cover up her body when she was pregnant. And now today we have Rihanna. Do you know who Rihanna is? Yeah. Well, she sang the Super Bowl. We all wondered if she was maybe pregnant. And now she's developing fashion for pregnant women. And she's showing her baby bump open. She's putting beads across. She's trying all kinds of new things. And she's not even married. She's certainly in a committed relationship. This is her 2nd child. So some of those bad things that happen to women, the suppression of sexuality, has gradually pushed itself out so that women now, I think, are much more comfortable when their body's changing. So my thing that came up to me as I'm thinking about talking to you, thinking, what bad thing? So when I was 23 years old, I had 1 year left of college to be a registered nurse. I was married. And we became pregnant, to say that. It was unexpected and it was unwanted, really. The pregnancy itself was very unwanted. And in those days, girls were usually in a dormitory taking nursing, so I was one of the first classes ever where we moved it out to a college. And all of the women nurses had been raised in this very conservative environment, and so I really didn't know if they would even let me come back to school. My husband was like maybe 24 years old at the time, so we were kids. I know that now. At the time, I didn't know that. We were kids, and Norm said to me, okay, so are you going to have to quit school? And I was furious that he would ask me that question, because it was exactly the question I had myself. And it made me so darn mad to have him say it, that out of my mouth came, I am absolutely going back to school and I am finishing. And I put my stake in the ground, and then I was proud, and I was not prepared to take it back out. So I just turned up at school. I didn't ask anybody, I didn't go talk to anybody, I just turned up for my last year. That would be such a big deal, but it was really a groundbreaking thing to do. My wonderful mother and my mother-in-law both made me the cutest outfits you could imagine that were mix and match, and I turned up as a doll with my cute little outfit, and so all the girls thought being pregnant was actually quite cool and lovely, and they always looked good. Of course, the last 9 months, the 9th month was probably less attractive and much more difficult to sit in class and to write final exams. And I had our baby, and I stayed home for 2 weeks. And then my partner and I figured out a way where he changed his work to afternoons. I was working days. I couldn't breastfeed. I couldn't handle that, I knew. So we bottle fed this lovely boy, and Norm did the daytime shift. He came home from work at 11 o'clock or so at night. He did that night shift, and I covered the rest. He took days off during the week. I had the weekend off. We figured it out. Was it easy? Not at all. And were we the best of parents? We probably weren't. I can't remember. It was just we were so driven to kind of manage all things. I now have grandsons that are this age that we were, so I have a lot of admiration all of a sudden, because I thought about this now. I just have such admiration for, my husband, who was very willing to step right up to the plate, and we had a shared leader. So I do know that what felt like a really bad thing, an embarrassing thing, a shaming thing, a disappointing thing, a thing that could wreck my life thing, really was a good thing. We met our minister friend who's about 10 years older than us. We asked for if our baby could get christened at the United Church. And so the minister came to visit, at a home visit, and he said, yes, but you two, I'd like you to come and lead the youth group. Because we weren't going to church. We were raised in the church, but we hadn't been going to church. So he said, you'll come and lead the youth group, and I'll christen the baby. But you need to be active in the church. Otherwise, this christening, it doesn't make any sense. They were our best friends for life. I mean, we attended both of their funerals in the last couple of years. And as the minister's wife, Nancy, was making her transition, we flew out to Nanaimo to say goodbye. That friendship wouldn't have happened had this pregnancy not happened. Good things happen when bad things happen. We sometimes forget that when we're in the midst of a bad thing. The other experience that we had, and I'm sorry, guys, I feel like I'm giving a girl talk here for you today. But I love you guys, so please just bear with me. So the last story I want to talk about, good things happen when bad things happen, is our youngest child. When he was born, the doctor felt he was going to have possibly a very severe, debilitating intellectual and physical disability. And Norm and I actually met working at Mission Center with children with disabilities. Norm was fairly high up on the ladder working in Mission Center when this happened. He was in charge and sort of supervisor. He'd taken a lot of courses and had a diploma in rehab medicine. He was big there, and that was his life's work, and he'd been there for quite a few years. And this child, possibly to have a disability, we had to have him tested every couple of days. And I was very close to still these friends that were minister and wife, Norm and I both were. And I remember in the hospital when we received this news, saying, it was just so absolutely overwhelming, so absolutely devastating feeling, that I simply said, I just surrendered this. There is nothing I can do. And just being able to say, I completely surrendered this to the divine itself, just was releasing. I felt somehow a new energy came into my body. A peace came into my mind and my heart. So it turned out that the child was fine, that all the tests in the end showed that this was not going to happen, but it changed us forever. When bad things happen, good things can certainly happen, because Norm and I both said, if this child had this disability, we would not place him in this institution that we had both worked in, and where Norm was doing such good work in. We really agreed that we would raise our child at home, and we would want the community to support us. Norm quit his job, took a job in southern Alberta. We moved the whole family, and he started working with agencies who were supporting people with disabilities in the community. We moved to Edmonton when he got a promotion, and we continued to have that as our focus. And when I went to work, I started working as an early intervention nurse and served the rural community for mothers that had babies born with disabilities or potentially disabilities, maybe just really premature births. At the end of my career for the last 15 years, I worked as an executive director to the GRIT program, which means Getting Ready for Inclusion Today. It was started by parents just like we were, young, who had a child with a disability and wanted their child to be served at home and wanted to be empowered as parents to really be great advocates. They wanted to understand the system that the child was going into, and they wanted their child to be with their brothers and sisters in school. And so that ended up being the focus of my whole career once I returned to home as a working parent, and it certainly was what made Norm, I think, just especially powerful in his role. And really, I think, pushed him to a place of great leadership, because he had this vision, a heartfelt path. But it came from this bad thing that happened. Good things happen when bad things happen. We walked into this center just for a visit. We heard this teaching, that the presence of the divine is in you, in me, is within us, that it has embodied itself and lives and operates through us, And that as we think, we can choose things that serve us and that serve others and that serve the world. That we have the power to choose. And once we make that decision, that choice, the whole universe conspires for our good. People show up that open doors. People in the background that we don't even know about, like these nursing instructors that supported me and let me do this. Doctors who, came and sat with us and empathized with our concerns when we were concerned about our child. Our oldest son had an issue at work, and I remember him coming over and talking to us about it. And because of this teaching, and because of all the classes that we've taken here, and the mentoring we've gotten from so many of you as we asked for what we wanted prayer for and talked about our own challenges, all of that we were able to pour into that conversation by being good listeners, by not having to jump in to, fix the day and save the day, but to say things like, how could this serve your good? What good could come from this? What felt like a very bad and frightening thing. How can this serve your life? These are such simple messages. Maybe you could relate. Is there something in your life right now even where you think this is a bad thing? It should not be happening. And could you, if you sat with yourself, could you perhaps receive that message from the divine ocean of life that maybe just taps you on the shoulder that says, maybe this, that still small voice within. I know that when I've been in the pits of despair, I'm old, I've had a few of those pits. There was several times when I had just done everything I could think of doing. Read everything I could think of reading, talked to everybody I could think of talking to, where I just had to sit with myself in the fire and wait and wonder and gradually surrender to how I was feeling, to honor her, to give her some compassion, to stop judging and criticizing her. And there seems in the center of our being the divine, who simply is being. It's simply a state of hit bottom and you find out you're not alone. There's a presence that's there, waiting. I know that you know this too. Something wonderful is happening here at the center. We have a relatively new minister. This community is beginning to thrive and grow and become. I know the presence of the divine is here. We've walked through some bad stuff to get here, haven't we? With COVID and all the things that we've dealt with here. We've managed to inspire each other to find the good things, to be the thing itself, to do the work, because you still have to do the work. It was not easy finishing that nursing course. It was not easy raising children and often having different opinions about what is the best path to take. That's part of a long marriage. You're never really married to the same person for all the 50-some years that we've been married. We've each been different people, and we've had seasons of thriving and seasons where it felt like maybe there was a drought. That's life. Eckhart Tolle said this, that we would not grow if we didn't make mistakes. That it is you have a very shallow life if you want to stay above the waves of life. That we need all of these mistakes, missteps, these things that sometimes feel and are tragedies, that even within those missteps, those mistakes and tragedies, there is a seed and it's goodness. It's wisdom. It's the mud of life. And in that mud is already the lotus flower. It needs the mud to bloom. We need the mud in our lives too. We're not always grateful for it. I'm certainly not. I certainly do resist some of these feelings. When I'm angry, when I'm afraid, when I'm disappointed, when I'm judgmental. It's very hard to let those in and welcome them like guests to this house, knowing that they are sweeping me clean, growing my roots so I can feel sadness without crashing, so that I can be filled with joy. Because without the sadness, there is really no joy. To actually feel our life, we need to walk through some of the storms. We need each other. I know that the reason I got through the storms in my life is because I had the support of good people, compassionate people, people with empathy who had faced some storms themselves. And so this morning I invite you to reach out to the people in this community. We have wonderful practitioners who have studied for years to hold the consciousness of goodness when the storms of badness seem to be taking the day. We have people here who are not practitioners but have lived their whole life committed to being the thing itself in this world, to serving goodness, to transforming themselves, and through transforming themselves know that that is the only way that we can truly reach out and support the people around us and transform the world. So this morning I'm just wanting to say I love you. I'm so glad that you came here, and I know that you'll be blessed by this community if you're new. And so I know that I always see the divine in this community and in you.